to finally hurt GAM and get them off their course for the perfect split yet again. Last year, they accomplished the 14-0 in spring. They looked incredible. They swept everything to the side, and they are trying to repeat this feat. It has only been done by them before. No one else has accomplished the 14-0. So they might just go back-to-back spring splits 14-0, but today they have to overcome SBTC.
They do. They are only one game away from winning. SBTC has to win 2 in a row in order to make this happen. And now I think is a good time to bring up exactly what we were talking about with Saigon Buffalo, because it does tie into GAM's undefeated split a little bit. So currently, the way that I think we are now interpreting the rules, at least my understanding, it could be incorrect. Again, we don't really get exact rule sets, so it is difficult for us to know everything as going on. But as of this moment right now, Saigon Buffaloes, we thought their playoffs were dead after they lost earlier on in this week. It's not. They have one more series against the side of GAM, and Cerberus has 2 more series to play. The first metric that gets tracked is game score, and currently Cerberus is up +3. So if Cerberus loses both series, that means that they would go down at minimum 2 games, and that means if Saigon Buffalo 2-0s GAM, they would win. If Cerberus loses both series in a 2-0 or 1 series and a 2-1, 2 series, 2-0, Saigon Buffalo can still beat them by getting a 2-1 up against GAM, which means if GAM wins today, Saigon Buffalo has to destroy the undefeated split of GAM, the only team to do so over the course of the entire split, in order to just make playoffs, which would be terrifying, as Emperor trying to make the solo kill happen against Kiai at the beginning of the game. The Ignites weren't there, so it's just TPs available for these 2. But that is the interesting piece of this. Cerberus also has complete control. If Cerberus wins either series, they just win and they get their playoff spot. Yeah, so our last 2 days suddenly got way spicier for absolutely no reason, given that these Cerberus games mean so much more to playoffs and playoff implications.
Yeah, and we're going to come back to this when Cerberus actually plays and maybe loses to Team Secret, but I just want to say, Cerberus is the one team that lost the series to MBE, so if that comes back to bite them, that is going to be the most hilarious turn of events ever.
It would be the most Cerberus thing of all time to backslide on the back half of the split, lose all of their remaining games. Because they also play Team Secret, who currently is also in the relegation tournament. So if they lose 2 series to the 2 relegation teams at the end of the split, that would be a crazy turn of events. As Emperor's getting... Oh, my bad. That is not Levi. That is Gante. It does look like Levi might actually posture a bit towards the top side. He's cleared up towards this side of the map. And DNK is going to sit here and cover for just a little bit of time.
Meanwhile...
Bottom lane, a lot of aggression. Not able to hit up Xin for the last couple of auto attacks. The Lulu Q, as the Glitter Lance also can't quite do it, but the aggression from Slater and Paulette, very good at the early part of the game to be able to find some amount of damage. They have the level 3 as well. Style still waiting, Xin still waiting.
Yeah,
that's not going to be it,
Palat Slater is such a cool combo to talk about as well, because of course they were the champions in 2020 summer together on Team Flash. They've played together and they've won titles together, or 1 title to be precise. And of course, Palat, always known for his enchanters. There's always been an amazing enchanter player. Also known for his Rakan. We don't talk about the Rakan in game number 1, but he's redeeming himself already in the laning phase as we have a dive situation coming up. And trying to stack up.
TP, everything coming together. W is going to be able to knock Levi back underneath the tower, but that's a lot of damage dropped, and that's going to be first blood. Now Emperor gets one back, and now Levi's going to take quite a bit of damage. D1's going to try to help him out. Emperor's going to be able to continue throwing autos, but it's Kadi who's going to
Wait, he's still his Conqueror sect.
He's going to get brought down a little bit as well. Emperor doesn't quite have it to be able to clean up the remainder of the fight, as Levi's going to be able to do quite a bit. D1 now and it's just not going to happen. So close is the top trio to going down, but unfortunately SBTC Esports just barely does not have the damage, and as a result they go down 3-1.
And it is the legendary trio, the GAM core, the top side of GAM, that has won more titles than any other combination of players ever in the VCS. They strike again, but what a close fight. DNK, unfortunately, only level 3, so insanely squishy, dies to the AoE of Kati, and now it does look good for SBTC for a second there, because Enper is fully stacked on Conqueror and on Aurelia stacks, but he doesn't have mana, so he can't follow up after this Q. Barely misses out on 1 auto attack on Kati, I believe, and then Dia1 is just a little lone Syndra. Of course, she can't win against the fully stacked Lee Sin. Yes. I love that SBTC is ready to skirmish, and we have to remember, this series doesn't really mean that much for them. I love that they are showing the willingness to challenge GAM in the early game, to skirmish against them, and even if they lose today, I want to see more of that in the playoffs. Unfortunately, it's once again GAM coming out on top.
incredibly early dragon here coming out from SBTC Esports with the Maokai, which was of interest to me. They kind of leveraged the bot lane push that they've had for a bit of time to be able to kind of take that one, as Levi is going to find DNK. Support from Palette's going to come in, so it's just going to be the Grom steal, I think, more than anything else. I don't think Levi wants to get this aggressive into Slater and into Palette this early on in the game. I could be wrong. I mean, there we go.
Yep.
Okay, Slater gets split off from the rest of the team. He was trying to walk away. The Glitterlant's going to get something as Cotty's going to come in as well, and that's going to be Palette getting sacrificed to the Wolves, as there's nothing here. DNK also gets stuck more or less underneath the tower, trying to clear the wave away. W is going to be utilized to try to get him back underneath of the tower. Now Levi's going to have something. Does he have the damage to continue? No, he does not, as double dives here in top and in bot work out so well as a result of the Levi Lee Sin.
Horrific coordination from the side of SBTC, who they could have walked together. 3 men under tower. I don't think that's diveable, but instead they split up.
Die to Cotty. The minions might be a saving grace, as there's no Qs to be able to come out. Palette joins as well, so that's going to be that. But there's no defender for this bot tower yet again. They're going to be able to proxy this wave. That's going to be another wave dumped as top lane. That's going to be a stun coming out. Kiaya is just going to get dropped, so that is at least a bit of reprieve. You get something. Emperor is down the mana, but that's all that he's down. He gets a kill as well. Is up 25 CS on the Jace at the moment. This is exactly what they wanted the Aurelia for. But, I mean, the exchange is the bot lane, where they did so much damage to Slater and Palette.
What a dynamic early game yet again from GAM. They changed their style coming into this week, it seems like, because we have known GAM for the last few weeks to be a very slow team. They barely didn't ever do anything in the early game and relied on their amazing team fighting, which we saw in Game 1 once again come to fruition and actually lead them to victory. But instead it seems like they're back on their course for early dives. And this is, of course, a much more interesting style of play to watch, for us at least. So far, GAM is dominating this game number 2, but SBTC is not completely out of it either. Some good counterplays, and now the top lane looks a little dicey for Kiaya. That's already a counter matchup, and he's now really far down. Look at his items, very squishy, no movement speed. If he ever gets caught in an E-stun and Emperor's is flash ready, I think he might just die.
You see, the biggest thing about the Jace is that the Jace is really good at range. If you shut the Jace down, all of a sudden, Syndra is the one that's going to be running this game more than anybody else. So Dia1 has a lot more agency. And as you said, the prolific Syndra player himself has a very, very big chance of just solo carrying the game. Because you think Jinx can test it in some circumstances. You have dive from Levi and from Yozin. But if you've got enough damage on this Syndra, you're never taking that chance, because she will just destroy you on the way in. Not to mention, they have counter engage. They got Emperor. They've got DNK. They've got all of these members. Like I said, they've got Lulu to help catch a lot of the dive potential. And so while GAM is off to a good foot, again, like you said, SBTC not out of the woods, or GAM's not out of the woods yet. They're going to grab up Rift Herald. That's going to be a good start to the game. If they pop it top to try to salvage something for Kiaya, I wouldn't blame them. I also wouldn't blame them if they took it bot or mid lane to try to juice up the members who are already strong on this squad, to try to make sure that they continue to level into their power. Part of me really wants them to put some investment into Kiaya, because as I said, I worry a little bit that if the Jace is not just absolutely kind of cracked as the late game comes on, Dia1 is going to go without pressure.
Yeah, and Emperor, of course, it's kind of hard to attack him now, because look at his items. He went pretty tanky early on, so for Lee Sin and Jace together to kill this Aurelia in time for her not to call reinforcements, especially with the TP coming up of cooldown for Dia1, is gonna be quite difficult. So I like that they called off the top lane play immediately and didn't go double down onto the Aurelia, because you could really lose the game there. Oh! The stun lands. That's another stun.
Double stun, yeah. And there's the root that's coming through. Kiaya is going to be able to get that kill.
Oh,
actually, what a play from DNK as well, to be able to block the Q so that Levi can't actually get anything. Now Emperor wants to auto-attack him. He's going to have the sustain. No, he's not going to be able to have the sustain. He's still going to die. This is going to be a shutdown. Now DNK going to have to deal with Cotty. Going to have to do something. I don't know. Cotty should have the damage for this. There we go. Really well played from Cotty. Just misses the last Q. You got to be kidding me. And now has to flash out from under the tower after he gets the kill. That was super well played from a number of members on both sides, as it ends up just being a trade of 2 kills apiece.
Yeah, and unfortunately they didn't swap tower aggro, because they thought it was just 1 kill, and the tower aggro was fine for that. But if they swapped tower aggro here, they could have actually 2v2'd, but instead Enper keeps tower aggro. There was an amazing play from DNK here, because this flash to block the Q is so amazing, and then it almost works out in their favor as Enper healed so much. Look at his healing, but unfortunately Levi hits yet another Q. If Enper plays that a bit more carefully and hides behind the minions, they'd probably get Levi, but Kati is here to salvage the play for GAM. What an amazing display of mechanics. And Lulu!
Oh, here we go. Now Levi potentially aggressed against again. The tower aggro was on Style. They were able to drag him out after the Rift Herald. Thankfully, Levi doesn't go down, but that is a dive that doesn't end up going over. Kiaya now under the bottom tower, pulling some additional plates, putting some pressure on a Slater, who's not going to be able to land that shock laser, so not going to have anything else to speak of. A little bit of lane reassignment coming in from GAM to try to find some additional advantages elsewhere on the map. I think is a cure for what ails them. But weren't able to make that mid dive. That mid dive got risky real fast. There were 3 members potentially on the verge of going down right there that could have completely swapped this game back over to the control of SBTC Esports. Instead, second dragon of the game. Now you have no pressure. You lost a number of members. Unless Rise decides to ult down into this fight, into 4 members of SBTCE, especially after Dia1 just TP'd back.
Or
there could be some legitimate threat. As here we go. Xin is out of this fight, going to die to Dia1. Ultimate still not available. That's going to be a play in from DNK. He's going to push them into the rest of the team.
Look
Guys
at
can try to
Kiaya.
find something into Slater. Ultimate gets popped, and that's going to be a 1-for-1 as it's Jace pilling 1. Now Emperor on the back line trying to find something. It's just he and Dia1 against 3 members as Dia1's getting chased down. E is going to get him away, but I don't think that's going to prevent them from dying. As GAM on the re-engage on this dragon, grab up the objective and get multiple kills. It looked like maybe SBTC had a chance, but just none was had.
How do they keep finding these angles? This looked so good from SBTC. Look at their start. Xin is out of the game already, and they have 4v2 on the bot side. It looks like they could just instantly kill them, but what a good collapse from Kiaya. He knows he's dead, and Kiaya just commits as much damage as possible, makes his Jace count, and suddenly they're all scattered across the whole battlefield. Nothing SBTC can do. Irelia never really getting in there, never really getting to stack up a passive, and unfortunately, it's yet another fight going in GAM's favor, but I have to commend them. It's so amazing to see them team fighting, because they just always find a way to turn things around.
Yes, they do. As bottom lane, there was a play. Slater was able to get the kill against Style. Somehow that ended up happening. Emperor also got the majority of this wave, and Kiaya is not going to be able to do anything about it. Instead, just kind of sits in the face of Emperor and deals with it. As the gold lead is up at 1,500, sitting near 1,500. There's quite a bit on both teams, I think, to be able to deal with here. This is that bottom side play that we saw just a few seconds ago. Nice flash from Slater. I was upset with Slater because in the previous fight, he waited so long on the lightning crash. There's Slater getting aggressed against. There's nothing that can be done. Paulette now, he's just trying to clear the wave, and he does. The rocket doesn't actually get anything, which means Levi does have to take the kill. So that is one benefit. Again, the kill at least didn't go back to Style, so you don't trade one back onto the ADC. But a punishment here from Levi, again, controlling this map on this Lee Sin so far, has just been an absolute animal.
Running it from top to bottom. But the gold lead is once again not big enough for GAM to rest assured, because there's still some fight left in SBTC, and especially looking at the likes of Emperor, but also DNK on this tree. Quite strong. He's trying to set up yet another trap, but of course Kati's already here to cover. GAM knows these kind of rotations so well, and instead now Style is getting 625 gold funneled into him for free, and suddenly Style back to even footing.
Yeah, Style back to even footing, and you can see the mid lane is going in favor of Rise with the Rod of Ages already done. Levi's at 5-1-5.
Wow.
He's an absolute beast in this game.
And remember, they banned 4 jungle champions against him, and he just gets his Lee Sin. We all know Levi Lee Sin. Like, no one needs to be introduced to that, even internationally. Everyone knows he's a beast on this champion, so the ban strategy I thought was good. Actually, just completely left the Lee Sin out of sight, and now he's punishing them for this mistake. He's just telling them, you forgot about my Lee Sin? You fools.
And again, as this game goes on, Kiaya got to catch up a little bit with some of the kill, but there's still no long-range threat. Syndra is still going to be a beast. You have a brick of DNK who's building full tank on the Maokai, which is, again, more popular now after the AP got nerfed down quite a bit of ways. And you still have a Zeri who's on okay itemization. The real fear in my mind is that this early game has gone so well for Kati that this Rise has just been running team fights. Again, without a range advantage on something like the Syndra, or without Slater being around to be able to put some damage into the Rise, it feels like Kati's just been able to completely run fights. Even if Emperor's in his face, I feel like he's just not that terrified. So you're getting one of your late game scalers really, really kind of ingrained in the roots of this game more than anything else. And that's one of the biggest benefits that Levi has kind of brought here, among all other things, like winning team fights, making dives happen. I mean, Levi's just been an absolute monster. But the biggest win to me was this Rise pick working out so well. Now Rift Herald's going to crack mid tower, and that's down. Like, there's nothing else for you to do.
Yeah, and speaking about the Rise scaling, usually Rise gets his Rod of Ages stack at around like level 14, maybe level 13. This Rise is accelerated already, so this Rod of Ages stack will get him probably to level 16, which is the huge power spike on this champion, as we have an engaged. GAM is looking for the fight.
Attempt from Levi, tried to find a way to kick, and instead Slater's going to be able to find some damage on the backline, and now the rest of the team is kind of thrown asunder. Emperor's going to be able to frontline. E and Ultimate are going to tag on to Kadi. Kadi's going to have to flash out the backside of the fight. Can Emperor find a minion to be able to jump to?
Look at Emperor!
He's going to be able to dance through the wave. He finds Kadi, and now Slater's on the front line to be able to put some extra damage in, but he just doesn't have enough. I don't think under the tower they do want to go. They have a couple of minions to maybe crack this tower, but that's all they're going to have is DNK is going to full tag for it. As finally SBTCE put their foot down and say no to GAM, going to be able to get quite a bit back. That is an objective bounty as well. If you notice, the dragon's going to be spawning here in about 37 seconds too. They're going to have a chance to reset and come back out on the map before that comes through, as finally some breathing room.
And it feels like GAM today is just playing a little bit more loose. Maybe maybe they got told by their coaches, okay, today you can go crazy, because this is not the GAM we've been seeing for the last 2-3 months. All of 2023, GAM has been very reserved, slow, macro team trying to approach the game more slowly, trying to win high percentage plays. And this is really the GAM of old, the GAM that overdives into mid-tier 2 tower that already fell from the push. So a little bit of a blunder on the macro sense there, and a little too aggressive. Gives 2 kills over to Slade, and he once again is the one shining light for his team, as Palat is trying to close in on Kati. There's the Flash Polymorph!
Very, very nice coming out from Palat, as that is going to be Kadi probably going down. It's a question of whether he can trade anything, but he's just not going to be able to. Instead, Emperor's going to pull that one. They traded for the Dragon, which is a Cloud Drake, and it's second of the game, so it's really not that important. And it's going to be top tower too. So SBTC making the right macro call. The one problem is Slater is a bit left out to dry. Thankfully, DNK is here for the hover, so you had a tank and you have an ADC. Making this dive happen is not going to be the easiest thing in the world, and instead, it's just a tower traded onto your mid and your top laner, as SBTCE have found the answers necessary your way to make this a much more interesting game. Slowly, Emperor is getting strong. Slowly, Dio1 is getting strong, and that is not what you want to hear if you're GAM Esports after the early game they had.
GAM was starting to run away with the game, but SBTC is not letting it happen. There's the TP. Xin and No Man's Land.
Forget Xin. I want to see Emperor wrap around on the remainder of the teammates. That's going to be Levi. That's going to be the first stun coming out. Emperor's going to be able to grab some additional damage. Styles going to be able to throw quite a bit into Emperor, and he's going to end up going down, as that's the rest of the fight. DNK takes a massive W to be able to queue the entirety of this team. Slater's cleaning up everybody. There was nothing else to be said about it. It looked dangerous. I thought Emperor's flank was the real danger, but instead the front to back, it's Slater who cleans up the fight.
And it's the change in approach and team fights. I wanted to see them play front to back or draft front to back, because the composition in the last game was just too complicated to play for these players. But look at this now. They know exactly what to do here. Dia1 actually buying so much time, even though he dies on the side. But look at Emperor and DNK diving into the backline with Slater, saved by Palat, just ready to go on the Zeri. Stronger and stronger. He gets so much movement speed, so much damage. And this is Zeri on 1.5 items. Now she's going to have 2.5. This Zeri is not getting weaker, and you have a huge frontline this time, plus a Lulu. There's the gold graph. It's an SBTC gold advantage for the first time.
Okay. We're really excited about this coming out now your way, because this is the swap that SBTC has needed to be able to work all game. And now Zeri is super strong, so you always have to be worried about where the Zeri is going to be inside of teamfights. The dive is warranted to try to ensure that this champion does not pop off, but the threats are still abundant. You still have Emperor on this Blade of the Rune King, now Shield Bow, which means that you can do some really legitimate damage on Emperor and have a ton of survivability in the backline. You've got Syndra, who's nearing Seraph's completion. Rabadon's is probably coming after that. Void Staff is coming after that. And then then the Syndra is just going to start hitting like an absolute truck. It's going to be difficult for the Rise to get in on anything.
You know new Syndra, right? I need to check in with you.
Oh, yeah.
She has 77 stacks right now. That seems pretty low to me. 80 is another upgrade on one of the skills.
80 is an upgrade, yes. I believe it's the ultimate is 120, which also gives a bunch of AP, and I think 100 is a different one, which is the E, maybe getting some additional range.
Ult is 100, and then you get the extra AP at 120.
Maybe that's what it is. Yeah, maybe that's what it is. So 80 must be the E upgrade, so you get the double range on E, the double width on E to be able to hit more orbs, and then ultimate is going to be at 100. That's when you get the execute damage, which is a disgraceful power spike. And that's not even assuming that, again, if you have Rabadon Seraphs done by the time that 120 hits, you are going to be cashing in for hundreds of AP which means that Dia1 is scaling exponentially right now as these splinters continue to kind of carve up the rest of the team. And in the meantime, while we're waiting for that, again, you still have this massive Aurelia. You still have Slater, who is nearly completing 3 items already in this game to kind of sit in front of you and not have to worry about being this massive damage dealer, as Dia1 doesn't have to do all the heavy lifting at this point.
And Rebel, now I actually have to look at GAM's team composition and say, their composition is really hard to play in team fights too, right? When they were super far ahead, Kati, never mind.
Big kick, try to find DNK. DNK is going to use the W. The Q is going to be massive, but there's just nobody here for some additional support. As GAM, they find a 5v2. 5v2 in the mid lane, and now all of a sudden, again, Emperor is without TV. He's going to have to back, and he's going to have to walk into this Baron pit. There's going to be 2 members, but they are without a smite. Dia1's going to have to try to 50-50 it with like a Q or a W or something like that, but I just don't think that that's going to be the case. As GAM, I was going to say they need to really spike right now. They need to do something massive right now, and that was the big win. Shock Laser, WQ, yeah, they waited it out. They were way too patient. Now Xin, he's looking a little bit active there, but fortunately, he's going to be able to call that one off. Instead, they're just going to fight for some Raptors. It's not going to matter. It's Baron buff, and a bunch of pressure from GAM now begins to mount, as that's going to be gold advantage, and more importantly, the 3rd dragon of the game. They're going to really kind of leverage this Cloud Soul that's going to be popping up here in a few minutes against SBTC Esports, challenging whether or not they're ready to team fight.
I'm convinced they have plot armor. This is ridiculous. Every game they find this pick in the mid game that leads to Baron. I've seen it too many times. It's ridiculous how often this happens. You need to call out these positions better. And Palet used his flash aggressively in the last team fight, got punished severely now. They get DNK as well, the Baron over to GAM. Once again, the game is still very close in gold, but GAM is probably in a good position to fight. So I like SBTC playing a little bit more defensively, trying to leverage their super strong side laner here. Maybe get a tower with potentially objective bounties after this dragon falls, because I feel like they should be close in terms of gold. So trading the tower for the dragon is something I actually like to see. But once again, that is almost a mistake you can't make, especially against the best team in the league, especially after winning so many teamfights. The momentum was all in favor of SBTC, and they just squandered away with oversteps in the mid lane.
Yes, it was kind of a tragic ending right there to that fight, because again, it was so preventable. I don't know why Palet and DNK were so far up in the laning phase. I don't know what kind of prompted
usually
that.
It's the ADC.
Usually it's the ADC, and you get caught out because they're farming too far up. Yeah, exactly. So those two. And then the other thing is people showing on the map as well. It's one thing if they're not showing on the map. If they're showing on the map, you can never do that because you know that they're on their own, right? Emperor doesn't have TP. You see him on the map in the bot lane. You have to communicate that he cannot show. If he doesn't show, then they have to worry, oh, is Emperor going to be here? Are they going to show up? We can't necessarily make this force happen. They had 2 people in vision on the map outside of the mid lane. It's like, oh, okay, we don't care. Like, we're going on this no matter what. Even if they rotate in, we're going to be 2 members up by the time that they get here. It's not going to matter in the slightest. As Kati making the split push happen a little bit. Good damage into Emperor. Wow, lots of damage into Emperor. As DNK is going to try to find a flank angle. E comes out from Dia1 to be able to find a bit of a stun. His style is here for the reinforce. Ultimate's going to be coming through. That's a lot of members to deliver right in the middle of the Meat Rider that is the rest of the team. As Dia1's going to throw in some additional damage. Zonius gets popped here by Emperor to try to make him survive just a little bit longer. Ultimate gets dropped. There's a lot of members here on GAM with very low health. Levi's going to try to get out. Slater doesn't have the health to be able to kind of walk forward. Now Dia1 is your last remaining true damage threat inside of a fight like this. See if anything can come through. Style and Kiaya are both very high health as well, as a TP into the mid lane is going to continue to threaten, as that's a fight. Again, not all the pieces of SBTC are there and ready to fight on the spot. If they are, maybe this is a different story, but it is GAM who is continuing to leverage this numbers advantage over and over again.
I'm 100% convinced now that they're playing more loosely today than I've seen GAM all split, because that was such a risky engage to take into both Maokai and Irelia, where you know they like when everyone is clumped together in a Rise ultimate, and they instantly reacted. If the members were closer, if Zeri was closer, this is a game-changing fight. If Zeri is here at the start of the fight, I think they instantly win the fight, because Slater can really go off, but he's too late, and he gets hit by a huge shock blast too, so he's immediately down to half HP, can't really play very aggressively, and SBTC yet another limp away from yet another fight, and GAM is just slowly but surely taking control of the whole map. Level 16 now for Kati. Finally hit the power spike. He's insanely strong. You have to worry about him now. Slowly, Iaya's items are trickling in, so you can't ignore him like you were able to a few minutes ago. So it's getting scarier and scarier.
Truly is. And right there, also another really big thing that wasn't even noted. I think DL1 had only seconds prior used the scat of the week, and if the scat of the week were available, think about this: you're taking a Q, you're taking a W, and you're taking scat of the week. All of those members that came in on the Rise Ultimate are half health because they saw the cooldown was down. They operated on that one very, very loose kind of a win condition, which was that Syndra not being able to destroy them from that big of a range. And if they get that, I mean, imagine you deliver half health bar of everybody; they're all stunned up. Now a big flank coming through. This is a big win as they're going to be able to get directly onto the ADC. That's going to be Stout potentially going down. Slater on the other side gets ulted by the Lulu to try to deny everything
Still
else.
alive?
Nope. Slater gets out a little bit of damage, but they're winning on both sides of the fight here as they're going to be able to shove off Kiaya. Enper has the Guardian Angel. Kadi's going to die. There's nothing stopping that. So they're going to hand that kill over to the Aurelia as well. They're further up the mid lane. Everybody trying to escape as little as possible. No waves on either side to be able to push in mid lane here as Kiaya's the only one on the bottom side. And slowly, the fight kind of tapers off. A 2-for-1 here for the side of SBTC Esports as they are the ones that finally engage into something and find pay dirt with it. DL1's looking for Kiaya. They know Kiaya's here. He has to walk through the wave. Oh, that's really bad. DNK's got a great angle. Kiaya, you got to turn into DL1. That's your only option here. As DL1 just needs to keep him spaced away. Stat of the week's going to kill him. Almost certainly going to be
Still, the chase is going on.
Here comes Palette. See what else happens. Q's not going to find it. They're going to try to give the kill over to the Syndra. It's DNK that ends up pulling it, I believe, off the back of the Bomby Cinder, the Cinder Hulk, whatever it is. Cinder Hulk's been out of the game forever. But it does end up being a 3-for-1 here after everything's said and done.
This teamfight was a minute ago or something, and both teams get on the top of the enemy ADC. Unfortunately, Slater not quite able to get out of there. He was close. If Slater lives, SBTC has an angle to go 4-5-0 in the team fight. Almost able to live, but they do shut down the Rise once again. So huge fight. It's still possible to win fights for SBTC, even after all the success we've seen from GAM. Their composition is so hard to execute, and if style goes down first and you focus on Kati, suddenly SBTC's composition is much better set up to deal with slow damage over time kind of setups. So it's all about style, and he doesn't have his flash right now. So this is a good position for SBTC. If they can force and engage, somehow get on top of style, they could turn around the game and the whole series here.
Okay, where is my wit's end? And there we go. Hearthbound Axe is built for Enper, so that means the Magic Boost is going to come through. So the one thing that has really been ripping through Enper is finally going to get satiated or kind of destroyed. Kadi's already building in a pen, though, so that counter is going to come through. I almost would prefer like a wit's end and a Maw coming out for Enper, given given how much that Kadi's been able to do against this Aurelia. It's really the one remaining member that like the Aurelia cannot basically 1v5 against because of the amount of magic damage. As now, you see SBTC Esports, they're going to 50-50 the Baron. They're cool with the Cloud Soul going over to the side of GAM. It's not going to be a massive win condition. Ultimate gets popped by DNKs. They're down to 4,000 health, 3,000 health, 2,000 health.
Levi's here.
Baron. They're going to deny it. As Aurelia is going to be able to make sure that that gets secured as Levi tries for the steal. They don't have ultimates to make the counter engage happen. They might have to fight their way out of this situation as Levi gets a solid wraparound. Now they're going to look. They're going to find something into Kadi. Zin is going to look for something, but he gets polymorph on the way in, and now they're going to find
crazy fight.
Damage. And Per goes diving. He's going to find one. He's going to find two on the front end of this fight. Kiaya has to knock him backwards as Levi's on the other side. He's able to find anything. That's the shock laser that's going to be able to catch Kiaya, and now they're going to be able to jump over the wall. That's DL1 who's going to find and execute, and SBTC Esports has fought their way out of hell, Yulway. They got themselves the Baron, they got themselves the Dragon, they got themselves a gold advantage.
And this has always been the way to beat GAM. The two teams that were able to beat GAM, Flash and Cerberus, in the last 4 years of play in the VCS, played through front-to-back team fights. They played with Yoshino, with Ego on supportive champions, and Slater and Artemis on carries. They could hyper-carry team fights with support from their supports. This was always the way to beat GAM in team fights, and they have finally found the magic formula again. What a collapse from SBTC. Let's take another look. Kati, I mean, he goes too far forward, has to stopwatch immediately, and Style overextends on. Enper just deleted him off the map in a matter of milliseconds. Style had no way to react there, and it's just too much chase, too much compact team fighting from the side of SBTC. Their ADC is much stronger and much more able to fight for himself, to fend for himself in the team fights, while if Style ever gets jumped on, he insta-dies. So this is the huge difference here. Zeri just able to reposition herself, to rely on her own lifesteal, on her shields and everything like that, while Jinx, she deals damage, but she also dies insanely quickly. The definition of a glass cannon, and it's not working out for them.
And Zin, he lit a little bit of his AS Esports kind of background bleed into this one because he hasn't shown it too much this season. But when he was on SBTC, or when he was on AS Esports, my apologies, in the last couple of splits, he had this really bad propensity to be a KDA player on the Rakan, and just like he would find engages and then immediately bounce and do nothing. Right there, he popped ultimate. He had flash, I believe, as well as W. decided not to because he thought he was going to die, then died anyway, and got absolutely no value for the ultimate. Instead of just going in and trying to buy space for Levi to get something set up, the rest of the team to get something set up, find some kind of counter-engage against Emperor. Maybe that was the right decision, maybe it was the wrong decision, but one way or another, the fight was completely lost for GAM, and that got no pay dirt. Not to, again, solo out Xin. That was, to me, just much better kind of decision-making from SBTC. They turned against the tide of GAM as they were trying to, collapse on them at the Baron pit. And now, it seems a little doomed. Emperor is too massive. He's on Magicus, he's on Armor, he's on Guardian Angel, he's on everything that he needs. Lifesteal, he's got all of it. You have 5-item Zeri that's popping out here really, really heavily. It is a big situation here that SBTC Esports are able to capitalize on, maybe take us into a game number 3 away.
And we have seen some magic comebacks, some incredible team fighting from GAM all season. This has been the biggest difference between them and all the other teams. Their way of coming back into games, their way of stealing games that were 100% won for the other team is unmatched in this VCS. But this game looks rather hard to do something similar, especially now also looking at the IEDC item comparison. You just said 5 items for Slater. It's also 5 items for Style if you count boots. Wow. But he went the defensive route. He doesn't have IE. He doesn't have the crit multiplier. Now you're in kind of the worst of both worlds, where you die instantly because of Emperor, but you also don't deal the same damage because you didn't go IE. So now Style is in a really bad spot to carry his team.
Yeah, it probably going to be 5th item, Infinity Edge, if I had to take a wild guess here. Coming out with Style. Yeah, the BF sword absolutely kind of indicates, unless it's Bloodthirster, maybe he wants the Bloodthirster for sustain, but I feel like you're kind of throwing a little bit if you go for Bloodthirster instead of going for Infinity Edge. Oh, okay. They find an engagement. They're going to find him. They're going to get him to leave. That's one big thing, is Slater's going to be able to run in and just kind of do anything he wants, and that's just a death against Kiaya. Now they can push up top lane. Like, top lane, they need to shove this back because there is a siege minion up here, and I think that's exactly what they're going to want to do. They've got more than enough control with Dia1 and Emperor on the other side of the map. They're not really pressed about Levi finding anything and pushing up an additional wave. So instead, they're just going to combat this inhibitor that went down seconds ago.
Really nice collapse there from SBTC. Usually, this is what GAM does. We saw it early in the game where they just got 2 random picks in mid lane, but this time, SBTC are the ones to aggress the lone side laner. Now with the wave pushed in already in the top lane, GAM can't really leverage their inhibitor lane in the top side. No. So instead, now it's all SBTC all the time. And of course, GAM can just turtle for a while. The dragons are still quite far away. Baron comes up in 1 minute. They might have to go towards Baron. They don't want to lose another one. Yeah. But it's only one objective to worry about. And you naturally have top lane advantage because of the inhibitor line. So GAM can just play it very slowly for the next few minutes if they want to.
So big thing is that with traded kind of inhibitors on both sides of the map, you have bottom lane inhib that's delivering minions to set up Dragon, and SBTC Esports left a bunch of residual vision down on the top side of the map so that they could cover for the approach of GAM if they decide to walk at Baron, and now they're just going to walk at Dragon because they don't have to worry too much about any real setup being there. They've had to catch waves. They see that Kiaya and also Style are on the bottom wave, so the only people that could be there are like Levi could be there, Kadi could be there, and then of course Xin could be there trying to ward, but they're not assuming that that's going to be the case. I thought they were going to step directly into bot wave and maybe look for it, although I think Baron is more valuable. And since they've got the setup there, they've got the pushing wave there for Emperor to be able to continue to kind of bear down on. Honestly, I like this call better. I like them having top control and saying, okay, if you want Cloud Soul, take it. We don't care. We're just going to walk and we're going to have control of Baron Pit. And there's not much that you're going to be able to do about it. They have mid control too, so it's going to be really easy to set up push afterwards when they have the Baron buff. Have to be terrified of the top push because there's another wave that's going to be bearing down on them here in a second. I'm a little terrified here. I feel like this is a 50-50 that unfortunately GAM has to take the Cloud Soul, and they really don't want that because there's a lot more damage to be had out of this Baron buff right here and right now.
Yeah, I do like the decision for GAM from a different standpoint, though, where you probably don't want to fight right now looking at the item breakpoints. You know Style still needs some time to build his IE, so it's really risky to go for a fight. The last few fights didn't go GAM's way at all. They were obliterated, but Kati has overstepped.
Wow, Kati is just getting jumped on by Slater, who is completely fearless, running into this rise with the rest of the team on the backup. What an insane play. Flash burnt by Kati as well. Not going to find anything, although that was a lot burnt here from the side of SBTC Esports that got absolutely no pay dirt to be able to walk away with. And because of that, they have no ults to siege. They have no Maokai ultimate. That's the big one that got burnt right there that ended up not actually finding anything that seems like it should be necessary for them to be able to begin pushing. over the course of this game. Now, again, bot lane's pushing naturally. They're going to back. They're going to spend their gold. They're going to be able to get back out on the map. Guardian Angel's now done for the Zeri. Void Staff is now done for DO1. You have Warden's Mail done now for Emperor, so there's a lot more armor. You're going to get Spirit Visage here for Maokai, I think, soon enough in this game. Maybe you might go for Abyssal or something like that. But it's magic resist of some kind for DNK. As slowly they've ramped up their items, they've ramped up to a point where they're feeling like this is the breaking point. Do they need to win here, though? Like, if you take a hyper late game team fight against a 5-item everybody GAM, do you think SBTC wins that game?
I think SBTC still has the easier to execute fight. I do think the damage totals are probably higher on the side of GAM. If they play it perfectly, the 6-item Jace is gonna do really nasty things. Same goes for Ryze and for Style, of course, on the Jinx with the IE when it finally comes in. But it's still a pretty hard to execute composition because of all the squishy members. You can't really play traditional front to back, but then again, you're already under siege in your base, so it's a bit easier to play front to back just by virtue of where you're positioned on the map.
Here we go.
Here it comes. Here comes the dive.
Big ult attempt.
Oh, that was huge!
He's done for Style. That's going to be a big catch. And now Zane on the counter engage on the other side of the fight stops everybody right as they get underneath the tower. Emperor down underneath the tower trying to find something onto the one. Now Style's going to go down into the Guardian Angel. Emperor has not had his Guardian Angel pick quite
They got it!
Damage is still coming through from everybody else. Slater has plenty of opportunity to do some additional damage. Levi's going to go down. Style's going to go down. And everybody on the side of GAM Esports falls like dominoes to SBTC Esports, who draw out game number 3 away. It's not very often that we get a chance to go to game number 3, especially not in a fashion like this where the team fighting goes away from GAM. But here we are, SBTC Esports showing off their team fighting prowess as we get ready to go into playoffs and take us to game number 3 against GAM.
And they're not ready to give up yet. They won the title. They're not here to just play against GAM and say, hey, we won a game. No. SBTC, you know the players. Palette is a former champion. Slater is a former champion. Emperor finally wants his crown, and he completely wiped the floor with Kiaya in this map, with the counterpick on the red side. They do probably have to go to blue side, but still, for now, SBTC looking like equals against GAM, which is more than any other team could say over most of the season.
Yes, I believe I'm going to check this stat just to make sure that that's the case, and maybe I'll have to do it during the break because it's not something I can check super easily. But they might be the only team that has drew GAM to 2 best-of-3s, 2 full best-of-3s both times.